Much for coming out. This is a good topic that we'll have tonight. A little controversy going in our school district anyway, and I'm sure that it's around the state has the same similar issues. Just for a little bit, the restrooms are right in the back corner. There's sign-up sheets when you first came in. If you wouldn't mind to sign in. If you want to leave your email address, we can send you notices of other meetings that we're going to have in the future. And you may leave donations. We are more than happy for any of them. Next month's meeting will be on other good topic, that's TIF and LRTA, and that's tax increment financing and what's LRTA? Local Economic Revitalization Tax Abatement. These are both tax, I call them giveaways, from the state or local municipalities and the county, where one is they want to build a mall in Lower Macungie and they're going to use the TIF, and we have no idea how much money they're going to ask for, but this will all be explained the next month. We have speakers that have already spoken before the school board and local areas here. And now, if you wouldn't mind, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as I mentioned before, we have a few speakers tonight on this. Two people that have had personal experiences with going through this process. It's called Policy 109. And if you want to have a book or anything, I guess, in the curriculum changed or removed or whatever, you have to go through this policy if you are a citizen and come before the school district. So we have the two speakers. There's one, Eric Adams and Kelly Gravero. And we'll start with Kelly first, if you don't mind. And yes, you may sit. If you don't mind, use the microphone.
Okay.
It'll help.
Okay. All right. I'm a little nervous. Okay. My name's Kelly Gravero. I grew up in East Penn. Left here for a little bit after college. Can you hear me?
Pull the mic up close to you.
Okay. Okay. So I grew up in East Penn. Started here in about 3rd grade. Graduated from Emmaus High School. Left for a little bit after college, and my husband and I moved back in about 2004. And I knew we wanted to be in East Penn when we came back. It was a no-brainer. So I'm a stay-at-home mom with 3 children, 2 daughters, ages 5 and 11, and a son who will be 7 actually this weekend. So this school year we have a 10th grader at the high school, a 6th grader at Ayer, and a 1st grader at Shoemaker. So we're in all the schools. I first started the book prep when my daughter was in 8th grade at Ayer. She's an avid reader, and by middle school she had gone through much of the library. We were moving into the young adult section, and I made it a habit to proof any books before she read them. She brought prep home from the Ayer Library over Christmas break in 2010, and the first thing she said was, "The librarian said this was on the 9th grade summer reading list." And I said, "Great, I don't have to proof that one." Thankfully, I decided to flip through it and was shocked by the graphic and explicit content. As soon as the kids went back to school in January, I called Ayer and set up a meeting with then Vice Principal Mr. Silfies. I took in the book with pages marked for him to read. He immediately went to Principal Dr. Wells. He brought me into Dr. Wells' office and we talked a little bit, and they were both horrified by the content. Couldn't believe it was in their library. So I left, and Mr. Silfies told me he would call Claudia Schulman, who was then the director of curriculum. Within the hour, he called me back at home. Ms. Schulman seemed fully aware of the book's content and told him in no uncertain terms that it was required to be in the middle school library so that 8th grade readers had access to it. She also told him that the book had already been challenged and therefore nothing could be done. Mr. Silfies was as shocked as I was. He gave me Ms. Schulman's number so that I could speak to her directly. When I called, she was very short with me and clearly did not want to help. She assured me that she had read the book and knew exactly the parts I was concerned about. She stressed again that it had to be available in the middle school for 8th graders wanting to get a head start on the summer reading. I spoke with Mr. Sulpe several times that week. Although he agreed completely with my concerns, there was little he could do. After several frustrating days, I decided to call Dr. Torma, the assistant superintendent. She thankfully was willing to help. She returned my call quickly and gave me some very different information. She explained the procedure for challenging something in the curriculum and told me that Ms. Schulman would be contacting me about the necessary forms. Needless to say, it was a very different Mrs. Schulman who called me back. She had no explanation for her former dismissal of my concerns and vowed to help me along with my challenge. She sent me all the forms within a week. The paperwork itself was not complicated, but I really wanted to take my time and do things to the best of my ability. I read the book cover to cover. I spoke with other parents, PTO presidents, librarians, and teachers within and outside of our district. I researched the book online. One of the most difficult parts of the challenge actually was coming up with a replacement book. With my daughter's help, we selected and read many, many books and that we thought might fit the bill. I finally settled on the book Star Girl by Jerry Spinelli as my choice. So in May of 2011, I submitted my completed challenge. Mr. Schulman told me it would take some time to gather a committee and proceed. It wasn't until July that I finally heard from the curriculum office. Dr. Linda Davernoir had taken over for the retiring Claudia Schulman and found my submission within her files. Ms. Schulman had done nothing with the challenge, but Dr. Davernoir assured me that she would take it very seriously, and in fact, she did. She stayed in contact with me throughout the summer. We spoke often, especially as she read the book. She assembled a committee, being very careful to follow all the procedures. I was not allowed to be part of the committee or know exactly who was on the committee, but she was able to tell me the general makeup of the group, which included members of the community, teachers, and at least one board member. Dr. Davernoir had some strong opinions about the book, but it was her job to serve solely as a moderator. The people selected to review the challenge were given copies of the book and some time to read it. I think it was late August or early September when they finally met. Dr. Davernoir called me immediately following the meeting, and she was somewhat surprised by their decision. She told me that there was a lot of discussion and that they basically were split evenly on whether or not to remove it from the summer reading. Their final decision was to remove the book from the middle schools, but allow it to remain on the summer reading list for the incoming 9th grade students. They did suggest some more information be included for parents, including podcasts explaining in detail the content of this book and all the books on the reading list. It was my understanding that the decision of the committee would then be presented to the school board for a vote. Again, Dr. Davernoir could not voice her opinion, but merely present the suggestions of the committee. That was the last I heard from the district about my challenge. When PrEP made its way into the headlines in September, I tried to contact Dr. Davernoir, but she's retired. And it's my understanding now that there's currently no head of curriculum. Overall, I'm not sure how I feel about the challenge process. I am, of course, frustrated by the fact that PrEP still remains on the summer reading list for incoming 9th grade students. I do, however, feel some success with the fact that the committee was concerned enough to remove it from the middle school, so it is no longer in the middle schools. I was also very pleased by the actions of most of the East Penn staff. I applaud Dr. Wells and Mr. Selfies for their genuine interest they took in doing the right thing. They knew immediately that this book was inappropriate and did everything in their power really to aid my cause. Dr. Davernoir was also a huge help, and although she was limited in her power as well, she took my concerns seriously and always treated me with great respect. Do I think this is the best procedure to deal with something like this? I don't know. But I don't really think the whole shock and awe approach is the best way to handle it either. So that was my experience. So I'm open to any questions. If anybody has anything they want to ask me. Sure. There are 2 books. I can only speak about the one that I challenged. So that was PrEP, and I know nothing about the other book. And I'm not even sure if both books are being challenged now. Do you know, John? Are they both being challenged now?
I think it's really just the PrEP.
That's my understanding, but again, I'm not certain.
The 2 of them were mentioned. There's parents that brought both of them up for interest to see if they could get them taken off of the summer reading list.
Correct. And again, these are for 9th graders, so these are kids going into 9th grade. We're talking, my daughter was 13 when she brought it home from the Iyer Middle School library.
Where do you think they're in Africa? When they're very young?
Who? Oh, the school district. I was going to say, not my kids. I mean, I get it that all that stuff is out there, but I do my best to keep control of that, and it's just shocking that it's all coming. Any other questions? Yes.
How were you treated when you first did it and they didn't help you?
Well, and I hate to drop names, but really, Claudia Schulman really was the one who did not want to help me at all. And in fact, she had quite a few words with Mr. Silpies as well. I told him outright that the book had already been challenged. There was nothing we could do. It has to stay in the library. Things which I guess were not in fact true. So when the new director came on, she was more than helpful. I mean, I can't say enough really about the rest of the people. They were very helpful, very open to it. She tried to keep me informed as much as she could. Called me, like I said, several times during the summer, called me immediately after the meeting. So, I think if you follow the process, it was somewhat successful. They did remove it from the middle schools. Yes.
Were you surprised that the process wasn't followed completely, that it never made it to the board for a vote?
I still don't know. Is that a fact? Did it ever make it to the board? I don't know that. Yeah. I mean, it certainly seemed that way at the board meeting, didn't it? It seemed that no one knew about it.
Right. I believe the superintendent said that there had never been a Policy 109 challenge while he was there. So it's...
Well, he did say that, but then at that same meeting, someone did say that, I believe it was Mr. Ballard, who said that this book had in fact been challenged in 2011. But it seemed like none of the board members knew anything about it. It was my understanding, and maybe Mr. Ballard could correct me if I'm wrong, it was my understanding that it would then go before the board and they would either yay or nay what the committee suggested. That was my understanding. Yes?
I have a quick question. You stated that the book has to remain in the library. Why?
Well, that was Claudia Schulman again saying that, but they have removed it. They have removed it from the middle school libraries. But her argument was 8th graders are looking for it, and the parents of 8th graders want to get a head start on, not necessarily looking for that book in particular, but they want to get a head start on their summer reading. That was her whole argument.
So it's not in the library anymore, but it's still required for
It's in the high school library. It has been removed. It's been removed from the middle school library.
The high school starts with 9th graders, right?
The high school starts with 9th graders, correct.
Really?
So yes, something happened somewhere between that summer of 8th grade into 9th grade that makes it appropriate. I disagree. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And also, I will go back to the argument that if they're showing a PG-13 movie, we get a permission slip sent home that we have to sign. But this, somehow, because it's in print, it's okay. So I get it. I know what you're saying. It's shocking.
Gio?
Yes.
Do you know, was it in both libraries or just Ayers?
And that information I got actually at the board meeting as well. Again, I think it was Mr. Ballard who said there was only one copy and it was in the Ayer library. And I think my daughter was the first to check it out. So we might have gotten it, right ahead of time. And the other thing, this was probably said off the record between me and Mr. Silpies, but he did go right to the librarian. And she was on the fence about the book. She knew the content of the book, but she was getting a lot of pressure from the director of curriculum to have it in the library. So it was a fairly new copy. My daughter, if she wasn't the first to check it out, she was one of the first. But even after they removed it from the library, it's still in the 8th grade teachers' classrooms. That's another thing. That might have changed as well, but certainly when my daughter was there, it was still on the shelves of the 8th grade English teachers. Anybody else? Come on, Doug.
If I can ask one as far
Sure.
as, do you know, they took it out of the library, but did
The
they
middle
give you
school, just the middle school library.
Do you know why the reason was? Did they tell you?
That's what's ridiculous. I mean, they thought it was explicit. The content was not appropriate for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. They agreed unanimously on that, the committee. And again, I have no idea who was on the committee exactly. She gave me the makeup men versus women. I don't remember what that was. I know it was a female board member. There were some English teachers. I don't know if it was the head of the English department. But again, that should all be probably in the Section 109 information. They should tell you exactly who comprises the committee. And she was able to, I believe, handpick those people. She invited certain people. That's my understanding.
Just for information, if people would like, there are excerpts that were taken from the books that were presented to the board. If you'd like to look at these, you'll see how explicit things are. I'll leave them on this table if people want to pass them around. And like one, take one.
Anything else?
Or are there any other questions or anything for Ms. Gravero?
Yes.
Has there ever been any discussion about how to get that information out to parents before your children are bringing the books home with them, as to the content of the books or the subject matter of the books,
Right.
so that parents can deal with that preemptively?
Okay, well, it was my understanding that the committee actually asked them to do more of that, to do like a podcast explaining the content and the material. And they say that there's a disclaimer on the reading list saying it's for mature readers. Some selections are for mature readers, but I would say my daughter's a pretty mature reader. She reads a lot, and that's what I consider a mature reader. I don't consider explicit sex for a mature reader. So again, I thought that was going to be addressed. It was my understanding that the committee did recommend the school board change how they talked about the books and be more direct. Because, and I've said this lots of times, I know lots of good parents who are very involved with their kids who just pick up the reading list, and whichever ones are available at the library that day, that's what they check out, assuming they're okay. So it really, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps. Just by chance, I happened to flip through this book, because I did the exact same thing. She came home and said, it's on the reading list, and I said, great, that's fantastic, I don't even need to look at it. So yeah, that's part of the problem. That's a big problem. Yeah. Yes?
They're so mature that they practice what they do.
I know, right? I get it, yeah. Very frustrating.
I have a question, just would you care to read?
Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, the excerpts
You may.
the parents
No.
got.
No.
Oh, what the parents got, sure, I can read that. I thought you meant the excerpt from the book.
No.
I couldn't even do it without blushing. Okay. Oh, yeah, so they do actually mention sex, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to get it addressed on because I don't know anything about
Okay.
that. But, well, it starts here at the top. Please note, in the English department's attempt to provide rich and varied reading experiences for our students, there you go, we have selected titles for the summer reading list written mostly by contemporary authors. Some selections are focused toward mature readers. Please consult your English teacher or the library staff if you have questions about the titles on the reading list. Titles marked with an asterisk in parentheses contain adult language and or situations. So that's their disclaimer. So the little blurb about prep says, Lee Fiora is an intelligent, observant 14-year-old when her father drops her off in front of her dorm at the prestigious alt school in Massachusetts. She leaves her animated, affectionate family in South Bend, Indiana, at least in part because of the boarding school's glossy brochure, in which boys in sweaters chat in front of old brick buildings, girls in kilts hold lacrosse sticks on pristinely mowed athletic fields, and everyone sings hymns in chapel. That's supposed to tell you what's in the book. That's unbelievable, actually. And the irony of all this is my daughter was actually going into 9th grade honors English, so she had a different book list. So we didn't even pick from these. They actually read the classics. In honors suite. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's back here again. I just got this.
Yeah. How about it?
You gotta be kidding me.
Right? If they walked here again, here's my argument. If they walked in with a magazine like that and one of the teachers caught
And
them,
expelled.
right? So I
I
don't.
BS like this when I was in middle
I know. And it's not the entire book. I will say it's not the entire book. It's pretty much the last chapter. It's her senior year. But
So what?
I know. It's still in there. Even if it's one line. Right, Paula.
My question to you
Oh,
is
sorry.
that if the school district hasn't pulled it out of the
The main
senior high
library.
school main
Correct,
library,
correct.
and I'm assuming you haven't had any satisfaction beyond the school board.
Correct.
Is there anywhere else that you can go to follow whatever?
I don't know.
Education?
I don't know. And people get upset right away because they think you're talking about censorship.
No. It's not.
And it's not. I know. I agree. So no, I have not taken it any farther. But, the way I've been trying to deal with it is just get the word out as much as I can.
You got it with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Paula?
I was just actually a statement and a question. Do you not agree that if we were to actually read those to a eighth grader going into
I agree. I agree completely. It's complete. I don't want you to think I'm okay with this book. I'm not. Yeah. I think even at the high school, I don't even think if a male teacher read that to a bunch of girls, I would think, and I've been trying to explain that to my daughter too. I said there are laws that protect children from this. I'm not just being a mean old mom. So, you know, that's why there's ratings on movies, there's ratings on music. Why not books? And then it would be a no-brainer. Yes.
You just mentioned censorship.
Yes.
The Supreme Court of the United States has dealt with the issue of whether or not that kind of thing is censorship.
Okay.
And the court has said that by people expressing their opinion about writings like this, that's not censorship.
Okay.
They're not trying to censor someone from from their freedom of expression,
Right.
like the author of that book.
Right.
Okay? That's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is see whether or not that expression meets the constitutional requirements of the federal constitution, which applies to the states and through the states to the municipalities and the school districts within the states. So it's not, when people yell censorship, what they're saying, I think, to other people is, don't tell me what I can read.
Right.
Okay? Don't impose
Right,
your
and I'm not trying to
standards
do
on
that
me, but-
by any means.
but
I don't
the
think any of us are.
Okay.
Right.
But the Supreme Court says that you're not doing that.
Okay.
You're expressing your opinion as to whether or not that material is obscene or not.
Right.
Okay? And whether or not when it's addressed to minor children, whether there was a different standard, a more restrictive standard to be imposed,
Sure.
as opposed to the community at large. You know, those books, with respect to the community at large, in my opinion, the material in them is not obscene. But with respect to minors, with respect to high school or even middle school students, there's a different standard to be applied.
I agree. I agree, and I think that's what most people are missing. And if you read a lot of the comments in the newspapers and things, you know, people are yelling censorship and they haven't even read the book. That's another thing that's driving me crazy. People don't even know what's in this book and they've got strong opinions about it, which, you know, they're not going to show R-rated movies at school. They're not going to show explicit sex scenes at school in health class. They're just not going to do it because everyone knows it's not appropriate. So why is this okay? Yes.
You just made a statement. How many kids, even 8th graders, don't know anything about this?
Oh, correct. My daughter, I hope,
They know the total
yeah,
picture.
included.
They know the total picture. Why, as a school district, okay, why are we allowing it?
I know.
See, my problem is, you go to school to learn to read, write, okay, spell, whatever the thing is.
Right.
If you just follow the papers, the whole state of Pennsylvania, the public schools and everything has dropped with the learning process. All the grades and these scores and everything have dropped. So we're throwing this in.
I know.
And
I know.
another thing is, if they're going to take something out, it should apply to what they're going to school for, to learn.
Right.
They know what's going on. You can walk down the street, a 17-year-old kid will tell you where to go to get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we're not talking about children like when this gentleman and I was 15 years old, I didn't even know what time of day it was about his sex or anything else, okay?
Yeah.
Because my parent would slap me in the mouth if I said something,
I know.
okay? This all comes back to parents. You're a parent, you're the one speaking up. I've been following the school board, and I know a couple people on the school board. You're the only one or two that have complained about this, okay? So if the parents aren't worried about it,
But I don't think I think that's part of the problem. I don't think the parents know. Again, I'll
that's what I'm
say,
getting to. They
yeah.
don't even know what's being done.
If I read this description, and you know what, the cover of the book is awfully cute. It's got a little, you know, pink and green belt on it. I mean, it looks adorable. So who would know?
And then
Who
all you
would
have to
know?
read is the second column here, and it's embarrassing me to
I know.
read it.
I know.
So, see, what I'm trying to get to, it's us. We're the problem. Because you go to school board meeting, and I go to occasional, there's 8 or 10 people sitting there.
Right.
And then the school board will only allow you to talk for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and they cut you off, okay? But Ballard can stand up there for 40 minutes and expound on something, or Dr. Seidenberg. See, I know some of these people.
Yeah.
They talk, and you only have 2 minutes to make your explanation. okay? And they won't even give me an answer. Now, they took a vote at the school board meeting, and the young guy, I can't think of his name, all of a sudden.
Yeah, Stoltz.
He voted against it. He wanted it the book taken out.
Yes, yeah.
There should have been no qualms or
Well,
with this filthy
I'll have
here
to
should
say
have been
that,
voted out.
you know, if we have some questions or something, because we can go on.
Yeah, we can go all night
condemn
about
this
this.
Beyond belief.
You got me
but-
started.
And I'm on your side. I mean, I'm arguing the same thing, yes.
I'd just like to say, first of all, I agree that the parents are in charge of the children. However, we as taxpayers are paying for this.
That's right.
If you want your children to read this stuff, then that's your business in your home. But I don't want my tax dollars being spent to put this, and I consider this smut, into schools to have my children or grandchildren or my neighbor's children to be exposed to this. I mean, yeah, granted, kids know things, that's true, but we don't have to have our school district promote it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, feedback.
We get a lot of money from grants for drugs, trying to prevent pregnancies, rapes, bullying, but you look what they're reading. You tell me that's not promoting what we're getting taxpayer money to prevent.
Right.
So it don't make sense.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you covered this, I apologize for being late. And I'll share my experience.
Yeah.
It's following yours later.
Okay.
But one of the things that our my co-citizens have said is that we all feel outraged, and it's about the parents. It's about filing the complaint that we're going to hear about. I found out firsthand. It's about handing in the paperwork and having those complaints pile up in paper format, in signature pages, with our defined grievances on the paper, whether you're a grandpa, whether you're a teen mom, a mom of teenagers, or, it doesn't matter, as long as you're paying taxes in East Penn. And I found that it was those two pieces of paper that took it up a notch. That's not how many people showed up at the board meeting.
Right.
But that's what we need to talk about more, about how we can take it up a notch. Because
But I did submit, I don't know how much of my thing you heard, but I'm the one who submitted the paperwork back in 2011, and it went totally, under the wire. Nobody knew anything about it. So,
Well, it's a new year, and thank God it's a new year, and it doesn't mean it's going to be a different year.
Right.
But I might be onto something, because my name's Megan Slipka. I was in the paper inadvertently, not trying to be.
Yeah.
Okay, not trying to be.
Right.
In your spot, but found that what put it in there was those two pieces of paper with both titles on them. So we need to converse about how that can change things. I hope.
I hope so too. Okay.
If I could get Gio to come up just for a minute and read some stuff. I forgot to bring my glasses to the school. And he can read a few more excerpts of things that pertain to this.
Okay, I'm just going to read the description in the reading list for 10th grade for electric Kool-Aid acid test. Again, it also has the same note that was read before, warning parents, and this is the summary for the electric Kool-Aid acid test. Tom Wolfe's much discussed kaleidoscopic nonfiction novel chronicles the tale of novelist Ken Kesey and his band of merry pranksters. In the 1960s, Kesey led a group of psychedelic sympathizers around the country in a painted bus and presided over LSD-induced acid tests all along the way. Long considered one of the greatest books about the history of the hippies, Wolfe's ability to research like a reporter and simultaneously evoke the hallucinogenic indulgence of the era ensures that this book, written in 1967, will live long in the counterculture canon of American literature. So that was the description for electric Kool-Aid acid test. I'll put these out at the tables. One thing I also want to note, and you can see I'll pass these along the tables as well. When you go to the website, If you're a parent and you go to the website for the summer reading lists, their lists are in PDF form, and you can click on them to download them. And if you're unfortunate enough, you could download summer reading lists, and I'll pass them along so you can see them, that have the titles of the book. They have the same warning, but there are no descriptions of the book at all. So you would have to say, if you didn't realize there were other lists that gave descriptions, you would go to, say, Amazon or some other site to read a description which might contain no information about the real sexual content or drug content. Obviously, electric Kool-Aid acid test, they would mention the drug content, but much like the school district one, there's no mention of sex at all in it. So I'll pass these out. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Eric Adams.
Okay, thanks, John. So I'm here to talk about Policy 109. Appreciate the invitation. And my information is based on firsthand experience with Policy 109 in several different school districts here in the Lehigh Valley. I found that there are some differences in Policy 109, but for the most part, they're all essentially the same. Okay. My presentation is facetiously called Book Burning 101. That's just to draw attention to the knee-jerk reaction that the citizens' request often evokes from the general public. Okay, so I hope to show you tonight that the charges of book burning and book banning and censorship, these charges are entirely misplaced. And really, they only serve to divert the public's attention away from the merits of the specific charge against a specific book under question. Okay, so book burning is in fact something that's serious, and we should be very concerned about it, but we should not fear book burning from the individual citizens that are following Policy 109. Okay? All right, so quick overview, what exactly is the policy? Then I'll talk about some reasons to use the policy, how to use the policy, a few slides on some common fallacies regarding the policy, and then I want to get back to the book burning topic briefly at the end, and then a couple questions and comments. Okay, so what is Policy 109? As we've been discussing, it is the school district policy for both the selection and removal of resource materials in the curriculum. And it applies to textbooks, library books, films, and even summer reading lists, pretty much everything. So the administration policy does give some guidelines to the administrators on how to go about picking books. And here's an example. It says they should place principle above personal opinion and reason above prejudice in the selection of materials of the highest quality, that's my underline, to assure an appropriate comprehensive collection. So the idea is that administrators, if you think about it, they're trying to put together a collection of a very limited number of books. And they're trying to pick from tens of thousands of resource materials available to open society. They're trying to pick, arguably, what is the highest quality to put in the curriculum, okay? Not just what they like or what their personal opinion might be. They're trying to pick out the highest quality materials, because it is a collection. Policy 109 is also part of the social contract, and that's why people pay attention when you fill out forms. In exchange, what I mean by this is, in exchange for allowing the government to collect school property taxes, by force, if necessary, the deal is the public agrees to follow a set of rules. And one of those rules is that citizens are allowed to challenge books. And if necessary, they can have objectionable resource materials removed from the curriculum. Not by them, but by the elected members of the school board. Okay, so that's the social contract. When school districts remove books, they refer to it as weeding. Notice they don't call it book burning or book banning or censorship, they call it weeding. And here's an example of reasons they might remove a book. Maybe the book is out of date, the content is obsolete, inaccurate, misleading. A book might contribute to false concepts regarding minority or ethnic groups. So you see, these are all a lot of subjective reasons why the school district might decide to weed or remove a book. Okay, so why would we want to use Policy 109? All right, so two things come to mind. First is, well, we want to improve the quality of the curriculum by removing defective resource materials. okay? That's probably most important. But secondly, we want to ensure that the curriculum is aligned with the values of the community, okay? Because we can't forget, the public schools exist for the benefit of the community, not the other way around. Okay, so what are some attributes of a so-called defective curriculum? Well, I took a crack at this. I would say a defective curriculum may contain resource materials that promote political agendas. So the idea is we're using public dollars to promote specific political agendas. Resource materials defective ones might promote scientific, historic, or economic fallacies. The idea is that above all, education must be truthful, okay? It might promote illegal drug use or other criminal behavior. Certainly that's defective. Or it might promote vulgar belittlement of targeted groups of people in the community based on religion, race, gender. And I say vulgar belittlement because that's different from scholarly criticism of members of the community. Okay, there's no reason to be vulgar and belittling the people, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with scholarly criticism of people. All right. Other examples might be resource materials that contain excessive profanity, graphic violence, or in this case, explicit sexual content. Okay, probably most importantly, in my opinion, is that a defective curriculum has resource materials that lack educational value. And one thing that lacks, resource materials lack educational value when the administrators failed to pick the materials of the highest quality. So anytime they're falling short of what is the highest quality, our students are getting subpar materials, things that lack educational value. And that's really what this is ultimately about. All right, so I have some examples now. All right, these slides that you're going to see, they're all approved materials in several school districts in our area. Got East Penn, Easton, Nazareth, Quakertown. The point of this slide is you're going to see things here that you're going to assume, oh, that can't be going on in the East Penn school district. Okay, there's no way. Don't assume that, okay? When you see an example here from another school, if it got in that school, it can get into your school, okay? So just keep that in mind, all right? All right, so one example is Al Gore's film, An Inconvenient Truth. I understand that some schools are still showing this film today, and the problem with this film is that it's pushing a political agenda. It's not teaching kids about science, and it contains lots of scientific fallacies. More recently is a textbook called Globalization and Diversity. And this is actually a very good textbook, except that it's infused with political agendas and numerous scientific fallacies regarding global warming. Michael Moore has a film called Sicko, and this film is shown in health class. But of course, the film is really designed to push a political agenda. The theme is the merits of healthcare in communist Cuba compared to the United States. So very little to do about health, more to do about politics. And I just want to draw your attention. I think I got one of these little devices here. Can't really see it. Anyway, I want to draw your attention to this YouTube video. It's called What's a Dad to Do? It's a very interesting exchange of a citizen confronting the school board about this issue. And it's just very interesting. So I encourage you to check that out. All right, everyone reads Macbeth, I believe, still, the play, but now a lot of schools are also showing the movie Macbeth to either supplement the reading or maybe in some cases replace the reading. Okay, so there's at least a dozen versions of Macbeth on film, yet some schools have chosen to pick the Roman Polanski R-rated adaptation produced by Playboy, okay? And they picked that one because it's got the most graphic violence and the most nudity of the 12 versions they can pick from. Okay? To learn more about that, I encourage you to check out this website. This is a group of parents in the Council Rock School District that have really taken this effort to great lengths. All right, now I'd like to show you a brief clip. This is an example of graphic violence from an R-rated Hollywood movie. Again, this is approved for use and shown in school. And I'll just pop this in real quick. I think it's only a minute or two. if the sound works or not, but you don't really need the sound to appreciate what's going on here. Does everyone remember the Columbine Massacre?
What's this movie called?
This movie is called The Basketball Diaries, and it's approved for use in the Council Rock School District, and it may be in other school districts, we don't know. So you have to ask yourself, what is the educational value of this film? I still don't know what the educational value might be, but how to shoot people, yeah. In the Council Rock School District, they currently have, I believe, 50 movies that are R-rated and are specifically approved for use in the classroom. And they're all Hollywood movies. They're all very similar to this one. I have 12 examples on my hard drive here, but I'm only going to show you one right now. See, but in context, this is just a dream sequence. So, you know, it's okay. Okay? Okay, and so on all this business about the movies being shown in school, the key word is visual literacy. Visual literacy is the cloaked term school districts use to describe the practice of showing Hollywood movies in the classroom. And I'll just draw your attention to another YouTube video. A video is called Visual Literacy, Coming Soon to a Public School Near You. And the idea of this video is to kind of illustrate the absurdity of showing Hollywood movies. Okay? Okay, back to books. Nickel and dime is something that's been in the news a lot lately. The concern with nickel and dime primarily is that the author of this book is a political activist, a full-time political activist. She's not a writer, she's not Ernest Hemingway, she's a political activist. She's the founding co-chair, well, she's not dead either, by the way, she's a current active political activist. She's the founding co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America. This particular book was marketed to high schools and colleges for the purpose of promoting a specific political agenda. For example, near the end of the book, the author actually tells the student to, quote, join a national organization like ACORN to help promote the living wage legislation that this book is primarily written about. So just imagine a book, imagine a harmless book about the Second Amendment of the Constitution, okay? But the book, at the end of the book, and of course this book would be written by Wayne LaPierre, okay? And at the end of the book, Wayne LaPierre would tell the student to, quote, join a national organization like the NRA to help defend the Second Amendment. Now you can't imagine that because you'll never see that in a public school. And for good reason, it doesn't belong in a public school. And for the same reason, this book doesn't belong in a public school. Okay, this is the use of public dollars to promote specific political agendas, in this case, actual legislation. But nickel and dime is also famous for, I have just a brief sentence here, but there's actually 2 full pages of detailed instructions for students on how to beat a pre-employment drug test. So as they're getting ready to go out and get a job pretty soon, they can figure out how to beat a pre-employment drug test. Okay? All right, finally, back to East Penn. This is the summer reading, Tom Wolfe and Prep, and we've talked about this. This is the excerpt. This is the very graphic excerpt, very sexually explicit excerpt from Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. I'm not going to read it out loud. The point is, this is a description of what is referred to as a gangbang, and it's very graphic. All right, and let me just, sorry. You won't hear this excerpt on Gunther, and you won't read about it in the papers because they're not allowed to publish it or read it on the air. Okay. My wife actually tried to post this excerpt and another one on the comment section of the Morning Call and the Times Express. Within an hour, the censors at those organizations deleted her comments. And there's no F words, there's no profanity, but it's just so bad without the profanity that it was deleted. This is what we were talking about earlier, PrEP. This is another example of a girl describing oral sex. And I'm not going to read that either. But I did find something interesting in PrEP at the end. At the end of the book of PrEP, there's an interview with the author, okay? And the author actually tells the interviewer that she said, well, you know, I waited over a year to show the book that I just wrote to my parents. And here's the quote. It said, well, my parents thought this book would have been better without the last chapter. I think my parents thought the last chapter was unnecessarily graphic. So here's the actual author of the book. Doesn't want to show the book to her own parents because it's too graphic. And yet someone in the East Penn School District approved it and signed it off to be used in the curriculum. All right, so 3 more quick reasons why you would want to ask for reconsideration. First one is, these are world rankings. You've probably seen these before. This particular set of rankings is from 2010. It's the program for international student assessment. We're 17th in reading, and in science it gets worse. We're 23rd, and in math it drops even further to 31st. And again, not to lose focus, the point I'm trying to make is that this is really ultimately about the quality of the curriculum. It's about preparing students to obviously go out and compete in a global economy, okay? Yeah. Okay, so how to use Policy 109. Okay, everything is summarized on one chart, okay? So it's very simple, right? It's a very simple process. You start up here. This is where the citizen identifies a defect in the curriculum, and the goal is to get over to here, okay? To where you can improve the quality of the curriculum. All right, so what happens first is, and we've discussed some of this already, you want to notify the principal first, because the school districts don't want you talking to the teachers, and there's a good reason for that, because the teachers are just there to teach the curriculum. They're not responsible for approving it, so leave the teachers alone. Go right to the principal. The principal can either correct the defect or not. If the principal does not correct it, then you can submit a form, like we talked about. You fill out that form. That triggers the review. That triggers a committee to be formed. The committee is typically made up of all teachers and administrators, maybe 1 or 2 parents or people from the community. What's interesting about the committee is that, think about it, that book has already been approved by the superintendent. But now we're going to ask the committee of teachers and administrators to determine if their boss made a mistake when he or she approved the book in the first place. Okay? And usually they say, nope, boss made a good call there. And they will usually not second guess their boss. So what happens at that point then, it goes to the school board. And you can appeal at the school board. They review your request and then vote. Okay? If the board votes against you, you really have no other option. You can't go to the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a local control state, so the curriculum is primarily controlled by the school board. And so your only option is to campaign to elect new school board members and try again during the next election cycle. Okay? All right. So I just have a few fallacies regarding Policy 109. I think this was mentioned. A lot of people think that the complainant must be a parent or a resident of the school district, and that's a fallacy. The fact is, any concerned citizen can submit a complaint. And that's primarily because the school districts now receive about 5% to 100% of their funding from the state. So I think East Penn is like 20 or 28% or something. So if you live in Pennsylvania, you can submit a complaint. I submitted 3 complaints at school districts for which I was not a resident, and all 3 school districts honored my request, knowing full well by the address on the form that I didn't live in their school district. Another very common fallacy is that everyone assumes that the superintendent has the final say on all matters regarding the curriculum. And of course, that's a fallacy. The fact is that the school board is ultimately responsible for the content of the curriculum. The school board only delegates the selection of resource materials to the superintendent, but they're ultimately responsible. So the pecking order here is teachers, principal, superintendent, school board, and then of course the school board reports to the community through the election process. Okay, another important fallacy, and I haven't heard this in East Penn, and I hope it doesn't come up, but it's come up in other school districts. Someone will claim that their personal opposition to censorship is a valid reason for a school director to vote against the removal of a resource material. And I hope this doesn't happen in East Penn in a few weeks, because this is a fallacy as well. The fact is that the First Amendment to the Constitution does not apply to the selection of resource materials for the curriculum. Okay? If it did, then this entire Policy 109 would be unconstitutional. Okay? That's why this policy is in place, to allow the curriculum to be revised and have materials removed and added and so on. All right, so we're okay on time? Just a few more slides on book burning, and then we'll wrap this up. All right, so book burning. Historically, book burning is a tool used by both religious and secular authorities, keyword is authority, to suppress dissenting or heretical views that are perceived as posing a threat to the prevailing order. And book burning is a concern because it does result in the destruction of our cultural and intellectual heritage. Okay? Now, the issue here is the prevailing order in our public schools is not always the prevailing order of the general community. Okay? So for example, a lot of the mainstream ideas about God, country, free markets, capitalism, those are often deemed heretical by our public school authorities. So I made a point earlier noting that the number of resource materials selected for use in the curriculum is inherently limited. So in the long run, in minus out has to equal 0. If they add a book, then another book has to be removed to make room for it. Otherwise, the curriculum would just expand indefinitely and you'd have 1,000 books in your curriculum. Okay? So, this is what happens. Public school districts are essentially burning books when they remove resource materials to make room for new ones that are defective. Because presumably they got rid of a good resource material and replaced it with a bad one. Okay, so that's really the mechanism in which you could argue school districts are burning books. School districts are the authorities, citizens are not the authorities. All right, so here's a slide illustrating that. How might a public school make room for a new book like the electric Kool-Aid acid test, prep, or nickel and dime? Well, the procedure for the school district is the school librarian just takes the book and gets rid of it. Okay, and in one step, it's done. Cultural and intellectual heritage has been destroyed. That's how the school can do it. Remember, this is the procedure for citizens to remove a book. Okay, this is their procedure. Okay, and you'll notice that in this procedure, there's no school board involved. Okay, and since the school board is not involved, that means the community is not involved. Okay, so we really have to wonder what's being removed from our schools. Okay, every year that we might like, that might be part of our cultural or intellectual heritage. All right, so to wrap it up, let me just say that this is like one of my favorite economists, so I picked this quote: "Real power lies in the support of public opinion." So now it's up to us to talk to our friends and neighbors, get the word out, and let the chips fall where they may, so to speak. That's it. If anybody would like copies of these slides, just please send me an email, and I'd be glad to just send you all the slides or any other information that you might want. If we have some time, we can have some questions or comments. I wanted to thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Very informative.
Some thought just went to my mind. I wonder, is the school district promoting this kind of literature because they want to promote that kind of activity?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't either, but I'm wondering. I've been to school board meetings and it makes me wonder.
It's fun to speculate, and I have a couple ideas I'm working on, but I don't want to reveal them yet until I've tested them a little bit. I encourage you to think about why it might happen. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes,
You mentioned the removal of a book being a straight line event.
Yeah.
Librarian removes book goes away. Are you familiar with the incoming book processes that are used at the school?
Like, in other words, if a citizen recommends a book for the school district to use?
If a citizen recommends a book, or a democratic socialist political leader recommends a book, or anybody, like in your example earlier, are you familiar with the incoming process?
No. Are you?
No.
Oh, no. I didn't know if that was, I'm sorry, I didn't know if that was
No, I was wondering if you did because I asked.
Yeah, no, I think my understanding is the ideas for the books typically originate with the teachers, but the teachers are not in charge. They have to get everything approved by the administrators, first their principal,
and the curriculum,
and then ultimately has to be signed off by the superintendent. But the ideas typically originate from the professional educators, and then that's a very interesting question. I've always thought to myself, I have some books that are just classics that I think would be fantastic for all children to read. How would I introduce them to the school district? I have no idea how to do that. Become a teacher, I guess.
There is a company they get their reading list from. I saw it on the internet the other day, where this company sends this list to all the schools.
Yeah.
And these books are on this list. So I think we need to look into that company, where they're from, where the money source is, and how the books are getting in that company that's going to the school.
And
Yep.
nonprofit from the sale.
But there's, I think if you go to the school board, they have a name of the company, because there's several companies.
That's a very good thing to look into. Otto, yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make one other comment about PrEP. This is not the first time that PrEP has become an issue as a pornographic material. In 2009, in Yorba Linda, California, in a school reading list challenge there, it was determined that it was pornographic material, and it was removed from that school's reading list and library. Furthermore, it became a national issue because it was discussed on Fox News in 2009. So this is not new. People do know that this book has been around and what it's been classified as. And by the way, I forget the name of the company, but that company that provides those books is out of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Yeah, with PrEP, this is the question. Does PrEP meet this guideline here at all? And to me, it doesn't. But
Any more questions for Eric at all? Now we do have one more speaker that would like to.
There was a senior that said he's reading more because of that book. Do you wonder what he's reading?
Cliff Notes.
This is library.
yeah. Okay. Thanks again for your attention.
Okay, there is one more speaker, Megan Slifka. She actually made a policy 109, I guess, was it last year?
No, it was just 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. I'm sorry. If you'd like to talk on your experiences, if you have current stuff, that would be very good.
I have an update for everyone, although I don't know everyone. I won't read the microphone.
If you wouldn't mind sort of
Oh,
mixing
very
up on-
good.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No, perhaps not everybody can hear me. My name is Megan Slifka. I am parent of 2 teenage girls, or an 11-year-old and a 16-year-old. The 11-year-old acts like a teenager, and the 16-year-old acts like a middle schooler, so I'm a little confused. But the reason I'm here is because I became friends with Jeff and spoke with him briefly before speaking to the board in the last September 24th meeting or something like that, and got a 3-minute spot before the director of the board got his 48 minutes of discussion. So this is all just last minute. I just got a call a little while ago. So let me share with you what I did and what the results have been, and then you can ask me what else. Okay. Went to the board meeting. Prior to the board meeting, had been hearing about things happening through the newspaper and through emails that had come from some women I pray with every Wednesday for the schools and for our children in the schools. So we stay close together on the happenings. Read about the problem, read excerpts from both books, called the superintendent's office and said, how do I get the complaint form? And she said, if you go on the website and go to about 6 different steps, getting the complaint form is not easy. Got the complaint forms, printed them, and then filled them out, which also took a great deal of time. You have to cite what you're disagreeing with, what pages they're on, and why you're disagreeing with the context of the material. So once I scribbled that quickly, without a whole lot of forethought, I just knew it was obvious to everyone. So I thought myself, along with several other parents, we'd all be handing them in that night at the board meeting. So I literally did it a moment or so before I left for the board meeting. Once I turned it in, I got my chance to speak to the board. I spoke to the board in reference to East Penn's shared values. There's a series of shared values, I think there's 8 points that our district has posted for all of us to see how wonderful they are. And unfortunately, a good 5 or 6 of those values are completely broken by what they're doing in these 2 documents, these 2 books. So it was my role in that day to make the comparison to the values in the books, and that's what I did. When I handed in the paper version, I didn't realize that a few days later, Mr. Pipperato would call me on the phone and ask me to come in and speak to him in the same fashion that perhaps you had also. The middle school. Mr. Piparato had asked me to come. I wasn't expecting it because I hadn't met Eric. I didn't know what the processes were for complaint to principal, principal to board. So, fortunately, I have my notes with me about the results of the meeting, and I'll share with you how it went. This was Thursday of last week, 1 p.m., along with the Director of Special Education, Linda Pekarik. She is an acquaintance of mine because I have a special needs 16-year-old. So, we both agreed, Mr. Piparato and I, that there are 33,000 books in the library at our high school. 33,000 texts. Unfortunately, they picked two of the nastiest ones to put at the top of the list. We both agreed that the books contain sexually explicit materials. He wasn't shy about saying what the process was before we launched into how nasty the materials were. He shared with me the process of committee going to recommendation to parents. He kept saying 2 parents would be on the committee, but I didn't get an invitation, so I'm still waiting for that. But in the meantime, the committee was described to me, the history was described to me, and for 5 years this has been an issue. Is anybody else? There was a gentleman that said, this has been 5 years with the district, getting a black eye every time these book issues come up. It immediately allowed me to think about the district as a black eye, as him, Mr. Piparato, the principal, receiving the same black eye for what was going on and what we were discussing right then and there in his meeting. So I shifted gears, fortunately, with God's grace, and was able to say, why not put this to bed? Why not find a way to have you win and you stop looking like the bad guy and our district stop looking like trash? He said, what do you propose? My first proposal was that the books be removed completely and totally. And he, again, talked about committees. My second proposal was that a nice, large warning came in underneath both of these books if they remained on the list. And the warning went right behind or over top of the recommended by Amazon and Publishers Weekly, which is on that paperwork. Did you know that? It says PrEP, and it describes PrEP in an innocent way, and then it says recommended by Publishers Weekly and Amazon. So I looked at him and I said, perhaps we should remove that statement, which leads us to think it's a good book, and put, warning, sexually explicit materials contained herein. Parents, please read page 315 in PrEP prior to opening the text to your children. And he looked at me and said, I can do that. We'll see. The second notion I put forth was the notion that a letter go to the parents prior to the book list, because the summer reading list fell out of my daughter's backpack in July. Don't know how it got there. She didn't run home and say, Mommy, I can't wait to read 2 textbooks over summer. So, the principal's newsletter contains, it happened to be sitting on the entrance desk, it says, communication is a top priority for East Penn schools in 2012 and 13. So I flipped it open and said, please, if communication is your top priority, let's send a letter to every parent in the summer saying, the book lists are out, and several of the books contain sexually explicit material. Please read these pages. Please be careful. You've been warned, in a nice way. He said, I can do that. Let's all pray. He does. Third thing, we got to talking about the list. He showed me the list paper as it appears in the children's material that they bring home. And I explained that it appeared to me as though the list says it's a dozen books or so. It looks like it's a big fat list of choices. But inside the list there are a narrowing of choices because you need to pick 2 in each category, or of 1 or 4 categories. The bottom line is, no matter how you slice it, there's a high probability that your kid's going to pick a pornographic book, okay? I said to him, I feel like I got jumped in the hallway, that one of your English members jumped on me in the hallway and assaulted me. Why? Because this is a shock to me, that you'd put this stuff at the top of 33,000 books that you have possession of. You put it at the top, and then you say, oh, slip it in the backpack and send it home with the kids. So I feel as though I've been jumped as a parent, surprised and shocked and jumped. He said, oh. I said, so why is it that you've assaulted me as a parent and taken away my capabilities, yet the material contained in the books is sexual assault? All of it is sexual assault. He said, I didn't realize you felt that way, or it looks that way. It says, that's how it feels to us parents. Finally, again, not my deal, but I was prompted. I said, Mr. Peperato, if the materials have to stay in my kid's backpack list, and I have an 11th grader coming up. I have an 11-year-old coming up from 6th grade to the high school. What are the chances that your health curriculum contains material that educates the young men and women about what sexual assault is? What is sexual assault? What's the definition of sexual assault? How does it happen? How do you protect yourself against it? We know they have some drug material, education about not taking drugs. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Most health curriculums today have don't take drug classes and why drugs are bad. But unfortunately, he could not answer for me whether or not their health curriculum contained sexual assault education. So I said, why not elevate the district? Why not remove the black eye that you have for what's been in the paper and what we know to be true, and tell the public that you've now hired the LifeSmart curriculum from CareNet that Bethlehem uses, Easton uses, Northwestern uses, district, and Allentown uses, and it contains all the data that kids need to know to understand sexual assault and all the things that you're promoting in the reading material. We can counterbalance it. Would you care to hear about that so you don't look so silly? I said it in a nice way. I really did. I really did. I'm shortening it all. And he said, that'd be nice. I think you've got a point. Where can I get it? And I said, well, I happen to have the material right here on my iPad. And he said, you do? And I said, yes, it's free. It comes from CareNet, and it's something we offer on a regular basis to Allentown, Bethlehem, Northwestern, and Easton area schools. So, I wanted to give you guys an understanding of what I defined something for him I thought you'd find important. All right, here it is. Bear with me one moment. And I was able to share with him this one piece. There's a material, we provide material through CareNet. It's called LifeSmart Training. The first part is called Teen Sex and the Law. And it's all about family law, sexual assault and the laws behind that, as well as legalities involving sexual contact and STDs. It's a 90-minute presentation. I give it 4 to 6 times a week in season when the schools call us, and so do other people on my team. One of the things I tell the kids is that non-contact sexual abuse does not include the same sexual contact that we talk about in the slides. It says it includes acts such as voyeurism, intentional exposure of an individual to exhibitionism, unwanted exposure to pornography, and verbal or behavioral sexual harassment. And then it goes on and talks about taking nude pictures and distributing them. These are the kind of things that I define for children from 8th grade in Easton all the way through 10th. Thank God it's the season for me to do that, because when I asked him if they presented it at East Penn to counter this book issue, he said he didn't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you to take a whole nother tact, and that is the tack that says, we're tired of looking like the idiots in eastern Pennsylvania without the proper curriculum to support our kids. So I encouraged him to allow me and my team to present this material to them so they have something to back up the books. The Band-Aid over the disgusting books is a class that helps the kids know the books are disgusting. Kind of crazy, but it works. So I'd ask you all to be considering that and thinking about that. The last consideration before I left was I asked him to consider how many years this is going on. I said, it's been 5 years. Are you not tired? Are you not tired of fighting with me and me being parents? And he said, I am. And I said, what are the chances that the book list is getting a little old? What are the chances that it's time to refresh the book list in total? I mean, there's no shame in updating the book list. There's no book burning or, you know, what's the other term?
Censorship.
Censorship. There's no censorship in you guys deciding that you should refresh the list.
There's
right?
pride. There's pride.
There's pride. But we're talking about a black guy in East Penn. I mean, as soon as we got on that track, I was hoping I'd have his heart in that whole, how do we look? Because we had a conversation about how does East Penn look against Parkland, against Allentown School District.
Will it affect their funding or how many kids come to school next year?
By what?
If they don't respond?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
It's not a private company.
It's not a,
the funding
exactly.
keeps coming, and the compulsory attendance keeps students showing up.
Right.
So why change?
Why change?
And especially if you're private.
Well, one of the things, yep, pride is the one that falls everyone. And so hopefully, I'm telling you my story because that was the track, that was the method that I used in my case, because I was hoping to get action this year based on pride and saving face. I have 2 Chinese children. And one of the key phrases in China, one of the key issues is all about saving face. You guys ever heard this before in Asia? Saving face is a big issue. So pride and saving face and make a change so this goes away and you stop hearing from us, at least for a while. The final question I asked Mr. Pipperato was, how many parents does it take? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, if there's a committee, and I'm a parent with 2 pieces of paper, and the committee meets because of me, how many parents does it take to make the committee meet and change the view according to the parents? He did not have an answer. There's no understanding of how many parents it takes. However, I did explain that we were able to have civil rights changed over and over again in our country's history. Women get to vote now. There's no segregation any longer amongst the races. I mean, come on. There's got to be more than just 12 people on a committee that hold hostage 2,497 other students. How many parents does it take? And he said, again, I'm not sure. I came away with one very strong feeling. It's not going to work with just me. Okay? I mean, I talked my head off the whole time, but it's not going to work with just me. And I'll go back again and again and again because I feel strongly about this. But if we should have the form here. Does anybody have the complaint form? You have it on your laptop. Would you mail it to everybody here if they asked you for it? I'm not kidding. I mean, even my girlfriend moms who spend every Wednesday morning for 1 hour praying for the schools, none of them filed the complaint. And I'm furious with them. But that's the bottom line. So every single time, Jeff and I talked about it, every single time a form is filed, the principal has to read it and meet with the parent, and the committee has to be notified that another complaint has arrived. So I don't care if you're, brand new in the district, if you're a 22-year-old mom or a 72-year-old grandparent, you need to file the form. And everything that Eric has brought out, any one of those slides can be at the bottom of that form as your reason for complaint.
What about petition? Petition be effective?
It's the methodology that I got, you know, it's the method. It's the method that matters, not the board meeting, which I think was fabulous because we heard from everyone and it got the paper. It's the method. And he kept saying to me, it's committee. It's committee. Okay, fine, there's 12 people on the committee. How do we override the committee? So if there's 2,497 students in the district,
Force them to meet.
how many
20
parents?
times a day.
Yeah, how many parents, or at least once a week, because every single party in this room, starting with just this room, files a petition. So that's the issue. How many parents are there? So is it a percentage?
Yeah, well,
You know, I mean, do we need 30% of the households to scream?
well, all these parents are represented by their school board. And if the committee is unanimous in keeping these books, the school board can override the committee. If your elected members of your school board do not overrule the committee, you have no other option but to campaign for new school directors.
Well, then we're back, and I mentioned that to Mr. Piparato. I said, we can flush all of them out and bring a whole new crew in, but it'll take another 6 or 8 seasons before we see, and hundreds of more kids going to read this crap, and we're going to take black eyes as a district, because I hope it's in the paper every single season, when the 8th graders coming out of Iyer, and my 8th grader coming out of Lower Macungie Middle School in 2 years, gets that same list. An 8th grader gets a list with these 2 books on it. So if that list keeps coming out in the same fashion, and we all just meet, it won't do any good. And we can scream at the board, it won't do any good. It's the constant pecking at the committee and pecking at the high school internally that will change it. Yes?
You were talking about the legal issues you teach in your course. This should be illegal, teaching X-rated pornography in schools. Isn't there a legal action as parents and taxpayers we can do for promoting that in school?
You mean, are they stepping over the legal boundary of putting
Because
porn
you can't read it
in
on
schools?
You can't read it on the radio. You can't put it in.
I don't know what that is. I mean, that's a whole nother fight, and I think that's evident. We're right there. But you know what's interesting? It's the committee. It's the committee. Now the committee gets a nice legal notice from a wonderful lawyer that is willing to donate their time, or this group is willing to pay a lawyer to write the letter. We'll read it to the committee. Maybe the committee will change their mind then. But unless their jobs are personally at stake, they won't go against their boss. But perhaps the continuous, it's like having a pet duck. If we just peck at that school continuously until they can't take it anymore. So.
We've been trying to get rid of the school board for years, one by one, or however it doesn't work.
It's interesting. The school board elections are the least important among active parents that are raising kids today. I mean, I'm more involved now than I ever thought I wanted to be, but before I didn't care. And so there's about 97% of the parents out there really don't understand how important the school board is. And really, I got the impression the school board won't change what the committee says. They need an extreme amount of pressure to have a minority of parents make them vote against what the committee says inside the school. So I got that sense. I might be wrong. Yes, sir.
Is the committee and their names on the committee public?
I don't think so.
Then why?
And I don't know how they pick it. You might know that.
Let me, what's very interesting, in Easton School District, a committee was formed. They actually sent me 4 pages of detailed meeting minutes of what everyone said on the committee, who they were, all their names, and they put it on their website. So let's hope that East Penn follows the same level of transparency as Easton did.
I think legally you gotta look into how they do that. Well, you're not allowed to as a child. I mean, as a parent.
Yeah.
Read it.
Yes.
I'm a reading specialist, retired. I've done this for 26 years, and I've been following kids
Yeah.
from 8th grade going to
Yeah.
9th grade. They also have to write 5 paragraph piece about
Yeah.
reading too. Now, part of me says, what do they do with that paragraph? Do they throw it in the garbage, or do they do something with it because it's valuable information? So I think that you have to have, a pat on the back to say it's a great thing to do.
It is good.
But with all the wonderful literature we have available, Attorney Zelmoy just kind of made me think that really these 14 and 15-year-old kids are minors.
They are.
And I think that says a lot right there. Legally, I don't think that's the appropriate thing. It's inappropriate age level.
It's sexual assault
me,
is what it is.
Absolutely.
It's
And
sexual assault.
I think that's a good reason. You have to have a committee, but the committee has to be aware of that. And when I look back how this started, it could have been very easily handled.
Yeah.
This is a summer reading list. It's not a curriculum.
That's
it's not
right.
a state-run thing. So I think it could have been handled differently. But since we're to this point, it kind of points out a lot of other things. And Eric gave a wonderful education to all of us.
Yeah.
Thank him.
And also look at how much sexual assaults are happening in schools.
That's what's awesome. It's very difficult. So I encourage everyone. Yes, sir.
I've been banging this in my head all evening. So Eric, the simple solution to this whole thing and to save taxpayers and a lot of people a lot of grief is for the librarian to go into the library, take those 2 books and throw them in the garbage. Right?
That's right.
But that doesn't.
However they are,
It's
right?
still going on the list. I mean, the book is recommended by Amazon to publish.
But if they're not in the school, then they're not available on the list.
No, I mean, we don't go to the school to get our library books. I went to Maine Public Library and picked up both books, and they had multiple copies of both books that were checked out at the time. Boy, she says, these books are really active right now. Yeah, no kidding, because they're in the newspaper, and I had to explain why I wanted them, so that nobody thought I was reading that crap. But anyway, I mean, sure, the librarian, for a meeting. But it seems as easy as that is. It's about the list. It's about the recommendation. It's about changing that list over and having the district look differently externally. I hate to do it, but we would do almost anything to protect our reputations as human beings. We never want to look bad on the outside. I'm hoping that's the one shred. But one thing is for sure, it's not going to happen with just this nice gal, myself, and a few other.
So 1,000 people filed under policy 109.
It's only one
that
sheet
would
paper.
they would just make the school district go, woo,
Right.
And maybe they would say, okay.
And every single one has to be treated the same way. And every single one has to be, this is on by the principal, am I right?
So you got
If you file, it's a one piece of paper, just one side, it's not difficult to read, but you do have to cite, and now you have all the citings already printed out for you. You don't have to go to the library and get the material. You don't have to read the book. And Mr. Pipperato and I both agree, the Kool-Aid acid test is so poorly written and so hard to read and disgusting that it has no merit.
Sounds like a story by Dennis Leary.
Yeah, it is. It's basically the same thing. So thank you. There's a debate tonight. I'm sure it starts in a few minutes. I'm sure everybody wants to see that rather than hear me. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the presenters tonight. What am I doing here? Very good, excellent presentation for all. I'm glad everybody could come, and I hope you take some good information away. I like her mention that you have to get involved. Everybody has to do their part. Everybody fills out a piece of paper and sends it in, or come to a school board meeting, please.
With your piece of paper in hand.
With your piece of paper in hand, and hand them in. That will be the biggest thing. That you can't have 5 people doing the same thing for everybody. It just won't work. And I'd like to make, okay, Jeff, would you?
I just wanted to mention again, at that school board meeting where this was brought to their attention, one of the board members had said that he believes this whole thing was politically motivated. Thinking maybe we should get the word out, maybe it is politically motivated, maybe it's time we start getting new people in there and get rid of the people that feel like that about, you know what I mean? It's all about politics, not the kids.
Well, I know from you bringing this stuff up there that there were a couple questions you asked, 2 school board meetings in a row, and have you gotten any answers? Okay. I don't know. There's another thing to, the administration. What are they doing? I mean, you have people coming before them, asking them for questions. They don't have to respond in the meeting, but at least they can contact you. Sure, they have your contact. They can look in the newspaper and find your address and send it to you.
When they tried to make it look like it was a book burning thing in the media, they did post my address in there, so they know how to get a hold of me.
And again, the whole thing started with just removing it from the reading list. That's all we're talking about.
The school boards try to wear it
The
down.
newspapers grab a hold of it, and they put sex and banning books, and I guess it sells papers. That isn't what it started as, and it's still not that. So take Megan's advice, fill your papers out. What we'll do is, Megan, we can get that paper and put it on a website that hosts our stuff, which is epcat.us. If you want, you can go there. You'll see this. We're videotaping it. We'll present it to whoever wants to see it. And get your papers, fill them out, and please come to a school board meeting. They're interesting. Thank you very much. If you want to see your debates and everything tonight, take care. Thank you again.